Assalamu alaikum ismi Alia.
Well, assalamu alaikum ismi Kaki.
And we're from Arabia Hawsalia, which to you is Saudi Arabia.
Although our official language in Saudi Arabia is Arabian, but we as representatives of our country can speak English. And our country disagrees on the proposed motion. Carbon emissions should be reduced by 20% by the year 2014. This is because of the following reasons we're going to point out.
First off, our country on our map here is placed in the Middle East, and it is a very hot place, even in the desert, and our country is also fairly big. Air conditioning in malls, homes, offices, etc. is required. The highest temperature, according to BBC, can reach to 42 degrees in the hot periods. The discomfort from heat or humidity is extreme. Especially at our coast, the humidity is severely high. But in dry desert areas of our nation, winters are really cold. This means our whole country needs and depends on air conditioning and heating.
Secondly, our country is a big oil and natural gas exporter. This is because our lands have a lot of crude oil, and we supply the world with approximately 12% of oil and gas. Unfortunately, during the process of changing crude oil into usable gases, produce heat and carbon emissions. If we reduce our oil drillings, our economy will drop. But even worse, the whole world will be hungry for oil and gas. Oil and petrol prices are getting more and more expensive as it is becoming more rare and one day will be depleted. More and more, our people won't be able to afford high prices and many problems will occur, such as public transportation fees rising, the need for electricity and burning fossil fuels. Even though our country is not the biggest place in the world, but it is still big. The discomfort due to hot temperature, our nation's people are used to taking air-conditioned public or private transportation. Our current plan is to improve this by encouraging our citizens to buy more environmental-friendly cars.
All in all, our country is disagreeing to the proposed motion. Carbon emissions are to be reduced by 20% by the year. It is too hard for our nation to achieve. Problems and conflicts might occur within the nation and possibly outside around the world if attempt to reach the goal. It's too much for our country to go in for 3 years and might have to take longer. Thank you.
To be dependent on without it.
Well, if we don't export enough, then more problems will occur. For example, protests around the world. And in 3 years, it will be hard to stop our oil drilling. So maybe giving us more time, we will be able to tackle this problem.
Okay, thank you very much, Saudi Arabia.
Tina Kutu Tumara Tirani.
Hello, we are New Zealand, and we are for the motion that carbon emissions should be reduced by 20% by the year 2014.
Here are some facts about our country. As you can see, we are a big farming country.
Here's a small global warming introduction. Global warming causes many problems to the world, and that's why we strive to reduce all the emissions.
Here are some general facts about global warming. As you can see, this causes many problems.
Here are some changes about global warming in New Zealand. As you can see, there are many weather changes like rising sea levels. Here are some ways we can, here are changes in our countries here are some effects of the changes in our country. One big effect is that with hotter weather and rising sea levels, some exotic creatures may be coming into our country, and this will not be good for us.
Decreasing carbon emissions will be a good thing, especially for animals.
Here are some ways we can reduce global warming in our country. For example, since we have loads and loads of space in our country, we can plant wind turbines or other environmentally friendly energy sources so we can be a more environmentally friendly place. Though our country has increased our carbon footprint 3 times by recently, we still can reduce it as long as each household contributes a bit to the world, to our country. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation. Animals can ruin our ecosystems. Supposingly we have termites or some sort of creature coming in. They eat the trees, then some animals that rely on the trees will not be living in.
And plus, some species that we already have might not have adapted to the others coming in, which will affect the way they survive.
You said that you could build more wind turbines, etc., so you could save energy. But we, in our presentation, did say that wind power, solar power, and hydropower are too primitive to supply a country or a city. Our country is actually a very small country, and compared to other countries and stuff, our population is only 4 million, which is much less than any other country. So we don't need too much energy to support our whole country.
Okay, thank you very much. New Zealand.
Global Warming in Russia by Adrian Lee and an introduction. In this presentation, we're going to tell you about global warming in Russia. Does Russia want carbon emissions to be reduced, and why? Sit still and learn about how global warming affects Russia. We will also tell you about some carbon saving tips.
Russia is for global warming because it's very cold in Russia and they want global warming to kind of make it warmer.
And also, Russia can't normally grow their own crops, like places like New Zealand or England does, because some of Russia is frozen and the heat won't let the plants grow.
Many scientists say no.
Russia is one of the only places that is unaffected. Russians are also complaining because they want global warming. Most of Russia is frozen, so they can't use that land. Here's a quote by Rinat Gizatulin. He is some guy in Russia. We are not panicking. Global warming is not as catastrophic for us as it might be for some other countries. Rinat Gizatulin, a spokesman from the Natural Resources Ministry, says.
Reducing carbon.
Here's a tip to reduce your carbon emissions. Ride a bike to school. Cars release carbon emissions and contributes to global warming.
Carbon credit. Carbon credit is a limit on how much carbon emission can be released from each country. Places like USA could borrow some carbon credit from other places because they use all of theirs.
Carbon emission tip number 2, evolve. It may take a couple thousand years, but we can do it. We can evolve to cope with global warming. Kyoto Protocol was started in Kyoto, Japan in December. People are saying Russia will affect, however. Russia will be able to make a lot of money by selling credits when emissions trading gets underway.
Global warming. Why is it so? If Russia gets global warming, they might become like China, they put a lot of CO2 in the air, and after maybe 2 years after that's done, all the snow is gone, and maybe the Russians will give protest why they did global warming, because it's so hot, we can't handle it, and they might miss the cold.
But people in Russia should have kind of adapted to the cold, so they may be complaining about the hot, but they would try and find cold places.
Also, if you want global warming, wouldn't many of the animals die that are adapted to snow, and many people in kind of structures have always been adapted to that kind of weather and have to change?
We don't know, but I would say that some of Russia's kind of animal protection agencies, because Russia, in a way, is actually kind of close to like colder areas, so they can just bring the adapted animals over there.
You say that Russia is really cold and you want global warming just to warm up your country, and you say that some people are adapted to the cold. So are you willing to put the whole world in danger and carry on with your global warming just to...
We don't want global warming to completely just flood the world, but we would just like some warmth in Russia.
You said humans evolved. Have you ever considered that humans might become extinct by that time?
No. But humans have always found ways to survive through everything, so we could try and like build things to survive.
Well, since you said that the humans or people in Russia have adapted to the cold, what happens if like you want global warming? What happens if it gets really hot? What happens if it gets too hot? What will happen to them?
We haven't thought that far ahead yet. We just want a bit of warmth. That's it.
2 more questions.
So all you try to do is just more.
Yeah, we just want a bit of warmth. Just 5 degrees Celsius more, just a bit of warmth, so we can grow crops and everything.
And Jackson, last question.
Yeah, you said the animals have adapted to the weather you're going to move somewhere else. Well, doesn't global warming affect the entire world?
But there are some places that will stay colder for longer. Like the North Pole would stay colder longer than Russia would. So they could survive a bit more in Antarctica.